Welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast. Game week. Cyclones play in 2.5 days, 3 days, whatever you want to call it. Saturday morning, 11 o'clock. The Cyclones kick off college football in Ireland against Kansas State in what, I don't know how much you've listened to the Iowa podcasts or anything or just news or anything, but there's a chance that this game could be the most watched Cyclone game of all time. More than bowl games, Cy-Hawk, anything, just because this game you're going to get the casual fan to watch because it's the first game. It's on ESPN. It directly follows game day. All those things don't happen to the Cyclones very often.
I definitely could see that being the case. As you mentioned, it's the opening weekend of college football. Everybody's dying for content on TV. Like you said, it follows game day, which is going to be huge. And then, of course, overseas. So the NFL's been pushing for games overseas for a long time now. College is following in their footsteps, which is the right move, in my opinion, growing the game worldwide. So, yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's the most watched Iowa State game of all time as football goes.
Right. And then just in reality, and we're going to get to this, we're going to go through game by game, Iowa State, and then talk Nebraska schedule, Colorado schedule. And then you made a good point today, Trev. We didn't really talk about that till today, but we're going to do North Carolina. And it is kind of out of sight, out of mind. There was so much talk. There was so much controversy, what was happening, what wasn't happening with North Carolina and Bill Belichick. But really this summer, it's been quiet in North Carolina land with that. And I do think that's a good thing because PR people or him or a combination of everybody, it is time to play football, and he is a football coach and has a job to do. And he's really good at it. He's the best there ever, one of the best ever, if not the best ever in the NFL history. So we're going to talk about them as well, hit a few other topics, and then just really talk K-State here. Just before, we kind of do this a lot of times at the end of the show, but I don't want to talk about this at the beginning of the show tonight. Thank you to everybody that listens, rate, like, subscribe on your favorite player, podcast player. I know several people, listen and watch on Facebook or Twitter, YouTube. Now, YouTube is the one that's weird. We're on Steve Shuttler Media, and if you go to the Facebook page after 4 or 5 days and look, I think this week, last time I looked, Monday or Tuesday, and it said like 735 views on Facebook. Then you go to the YouTube, and it's like 2 views or 1 view. And it's the same thing on ours. So our audience is a Facebook audience, which is great. But the thing about YouTube is you can comment and you can interact with us live on the podcast. We can see it right on our screen here. And I'm not smart enough to figure out how to do that on Facebook. I think there is a way. I'm just not smart enough to figure it out.
I don't know if I am either, but no, thanks for everybody for listening. Yeah, the different platforms, it's kind of interesting to see the numbers. Some are better than others, and it just depends on what people's preference are or what they're using at the time that we're going or whenever they see the content or listen to it.
Yeah, that's what it's interesting to look and see. And this week there was someone from Taiwan listening. I have no idea.
Who knows? Maybe we're getting hacked by someone.
I don't know, or maybe it's someone from Taiwan that's in the United States that's just listening to it, and their phone is from Taiwan. There for the Little League World Series. Heck, I don't know.
Well, whoever this Taiwan person is, reach out, and we thank you.
Yep, we'll send you a koozie. So
there we go.
All right, let's get to the task at hand. Let's go through game by game. We're going to start with the Cyclones. Okay. Obviously, they play Saturday morning, 11 o'clock Iowa time. The Cyclones are on a plane right now. They left tonight from Des Moines. Direct flight from Des Moines to Dublin. They got a special plane or special clearance. If you and I were going to Ireland, we couldn't go from Des Moines to Ireland, but they got a direct flight They're going to land tomorrow morning, try to have everybody sleep tonight and get up normal day and try to get their times adjusted as best they can. They're not there very long, but it still is 6 hours difference and trying to make it up their time so they're ready to play. Matt Campbell, and I'm sure Chris Kleinman is the same way. Talk to a lot of people, talk to NFL people, talk to other colleges that have been over there, trying to make the transition and the body clock as normal as you can.
Yeah, I was kind of curious. I hadn't heard that yet, but I was wondering what day they were going over. So this makes sense on a Wednesday to leave now. I mean, you'd have to leave by now, I would think. And is Kansas State on the same schedule? Do you know?
I don't know that. I would expect them to be very similar. Chris Kleinman is kind of cut out of the same cloth as Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell's hired some people from Chris Kleinman's staff at North Dakota when he was there. They were both lower level coaches and have made the jump to the Big 12. I think that, Chris Kleinman is actually an Iowa guy. I think he is from Waterloo. He's been brought up. He's a Midwest guy, just like Matt Campbell. The programs are very much alike. The schools are alike. The cities are alike. And so this game is going to be a game of mistakes. It is the first game of the season. Turnover here or there, and then how bad of a turnover is it? Is it Rocco Becht he throws pick sixes. That's what he does. If there is a turnover, is it not a pick six and then defense holds to a field goal, doesn't give up a touchdown? Those type of things, or big plays. 2 years ago when Iowa State played Kansas State down in Kansas State in the snow game, Abu Samont ran for almost 300 yards. Is that a type of game? I don't see that. Iowa State last year was really, really bad against the run, best in the country against the pass. Now, they're not going to be best against the pass again, just because that statistically isn't going to happen, but maybe they're not as bad against the run. So it's just, and you never really know what can happen. It's the first game of the year. Crazy things happen. Who can and then just going to Ireland and that change, who can handle that the best? Will some of the players be super tired or their body fail? It's not going to be hot, so I don't think you're going to have the cramps and things that you see here in Iowa or in the South that first game, because it's supposed to be like 68 degrees there. But just with everything being weird and over in Ireland, will it matter? And how much it will matter is, I guess, how much it matters, and does it affect one team more than the other?
68 degrees sounds pretty good. I'm in Phoenix. It was 111 today, so it was hot. It's I don't care if it's what people say about dry heat. If it gets in triple digits, it's just warm. It's unbearable. But 68 sounds pretty good. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that'll be one of the keys. First time trip for both these teams, as far as I know, overseas, of course. So, yeah, it'll probably come down to who prepares better. Like you said, Rocco Becht's got a little pick six in him, kind of like Ricky Stanzi did for Iowa years ago. So that definitely, I see it being a close game. Of course, it's a 3-point spread, and the over-under is right at 49.5 as far as total points. And that's kind of where I've got my score prediction. It's right at the 50 mark.
Yep, that's me as well. Just obviously turnovers, and then, I would say penalties. First game, a lot of times pre-snap penalties become a problem for some teams. So that would be another key to the game if one team really struggles with, pre-snap infractions on offense or illegal motion or lining up wrong or however it is, or on defense, are you jumping off sides or just not getting lined up right and having to call timeouts? There's things like that do happen early in the season. And then just one of the things that worries me, last year was different, but Iowa State under Matt Campbell historically has started off really slow. And in this game, you cannot start slow. It's two teams that are, predicted to compete for the Big 12 championship, get to that Big 12 championship game. It's your probably biggest natural rival in the Big 12. It's just everything right away. And then, looking more into the season, by the end of the first week of September, Iowa State's going to have played their two biggest rivals and two of their hardest games on the schedule.
Yeah,
so Iowa State has no room for any slow starts this year.
No slow starts if they want to accomplish what they feel like they can this year. So you want to get right into it. I know we talked about predictions later, but do you just want to do kind of the score predictions since it's the first game and let's get it out of the way?
Yep, let's just go ahead and do this one. I think the score prediction and the spread and the over-under is close. I've got the score going under. I've got 21-17, and I do have Kansas State beating Iowa State.
Man, no faith in your team. I'm disappointed in you. The first game of the year. That's just last year. You had Iowa State going like 12-0, didn't you?
And I was pretty close. They were like 7-0. I was on the thing. Yeah. No. You're going to see. I still have them having a very good record. Not as good as last year. But here's how I see it. Let's say Iowa State. Hope I'm wrong. I mean, I'll be honest. I hope I'm wrong, and they win the game. If they win this one, they'll lose the Iowa one. I just think they split these two, and probably in the big scheme of the year and the end goals of the season, you actually want to beat Kansas State and lose to Iowa. Because probably the worst record you could have and still get to the Big 12 championship game is 7-2 with tiebreakers and everything else. That's what it was last year. And Iowa State was a beneficiary of the tiebreaker. So that means the rest of the way you can only lose one game. Now, if you look at their schedule, there's a chance of that, but it's very, very, very difficult. If you can get this win, essentially what helps this is essentially a Kansas State home game. So you're kind of winning on the road against a team that many people have favored to win the Big 12. So you are a huge step ahead of everybody else. But I am going to pick Kansas State 21-17 over Iowa State.
I'm going the opposite way as you. I've got more faith, I guess. The linebackers are healthy. Returning a bunch of starters. I'm going Iowa State 26, Kansas State 24, hitting the over by half a point. And I'm going to give Iowa State returning all these starters, minus a couple receivers and a couple other players. I trust Matt Campbell at Iowa State to figure out replacing receivers as much as anybody out there. So I'm not really too worried about the receivers. It is a question mark, of course.
Right. I'm not super worried either. The tight ends are really good. Mm-hmm. The Bramer is back, and then the other guy that replaced Bramer last year, that now they just have two really good ones. And then they replaced two, probably going to be starters in the NFL this year with two good ones. And then a couple of the others that are coming back that just didn't get the time and the receptions because of how good they were are stepping up. With their depth chart, they actually had the two transfers who you think would be the starters as not the starters. But they're going to play a lot. They're still going to throw it. I'm just worried about there's going to be a crucial play that I don't know if Iowa State's going to be able to make, or it is going to be like a pick six or a fumble, things like that has traditionally happened to Iowa State early in the year, mainly against the Hawkeyes. But I think, unfortunately, this one's going to be against Kansas State.
All right. You're going with the reverse theory there.
Yeah. Yep.
Picking against Iowa State. I've got them winning next week. Let's be that's a quick one for me. I've got them winning, getting a 2-0.
Yeah, South Dakota. Now here's what's weird is you're going to get home. So the game they are 6 hours ahead in Ireland. So the game kicks off at 5, 3.5 hour game. So there's 8:30, probably 2 hours, 2.5 hours to get to the plane. And then, I don't know how far a plane ride it is. I just don't know. You're not going to get home until Sunday night, Monday morning-ish, I don't think. And then you got a short week, go right back at it. So I think that game is going to be, whatever the spreads ends up being, I would bet the spread South Dakota. I do think the Cyclones win, but that game's going to be tougher than a lot of people think, just because of the short week. Win or lose against Kansas State, it's going to be tough mentally, physically, just to get back up for that game with that travel.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Whatever the spread is, I'd probably bet on South Dakota if the books allow, which I'm sure they will. They might wait till the night before they officially release a line on that one. But yeah, you're right. The travel is going to be a big factor. But I do think win or lose, Iowa State gets the win there. In my predictions, I've got to get into 2-0. You've got them at 1-1 now.
Yep. And then third week right there, September 6th, 3 in a row here. The Iowa Hawkeyes come to town. Iowa State has not beat the Hawkeyes in Ames since 2011. The last 2 times it's been in Ames, game day has been there. Game day is not going to be there this year, but I believe that Big Noon is going to be there. So still get one of the big, the big TV show there. So it is a big game. And then I kind of hinted to this earlier. I have the Hawkeyes losing to the Cyclones, and Iowa State ending that, 14-year, not really 14 years. You don't play there every year, but 14-year kind of curse-ish, and Matt Campbell gets his first win against the Hawkeyes in Ames.
I've got Iowa winning this one. Every year you and I are split on this. I think we've picked our team every year. So I've got Iowa getting the win, but I've got Iowa State at 2-1, and now you do as well too.
Yep. And this could very easily be switched. Iowa State beats Kansas State, loses to Iowa. I think after this 3-game stretch, Iowa State is 2-1. If for some reason they would end up 3-0, they're going to be ranked. They're going to be approaching top 15, maybe even top 10, with 2 really, really good wins before some teams have even played 2 games.
Yeah, if Iowa State is sitting there at 3-0, they should definitely be a top 12 to top 10-ish team. You're right.
Yeah. And now this is the weird game of the year. They go to Arkansas State, Jonesboro, Arkansas. Only reason I really know where that's at is going to Memphis a couple times to bowl games. You drive by Jonesboro. And so this is a weird game again. This is similar to like going to Akron and going to Ohio. Coming up in 28 or 29, I think they go to Tulane. They went to UNLV. Jamie Pollard is cheap. He will go to last year. Iowa State played Arkansas State in Ames and beat them like 52-7 or something. He doesn't want to pay those $1.5-2 million buy games. So he'll do a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-1 or a 1-for-1 when maybe, not paying them at all. Whatever it is, he sends his teams on the road. So they go to Arkansas State. I think this game won't be super easy either because this will be 4 straight games with travel and everything. But they do get the win.
Yeah, same at Arkansas State. I've got them getting the win, getting a 3-1.
Yep. And then now there's a bye week in there. September 20th, there's a bye, and then September 26th, I believe, is the date, or 27th. I can't remember exactly, but Arizona comes to Iowa State. I believe I would assume for the very first time ever. Not that they never play Arizona or never did, but I can't see a time where Arizona would ever came to Ames. Arizona definitely could end up being the worst team of the Big 12, so I have Iowa State winning that one as well.
Same here. I got Iowa State getting the win at home versus Arizona, improving to 4-1.
Yep, and I have the same thing, just different there. Then they go on the road to Cincinnati. Cincinnati is they could be better, or Satterfield could already be fired if it didn't go well to start. I have Iowa State winning, but I do think that game could be more difficult than it maybe should be. It's going back home for a lot of the Iowa State staff, a lot of Iowa State players from Ohio. They use that as a big recruiting area, with most of the coaches being from that area. So they're going to have a lot of things going on in that game that don't always happen, but the Cyclones are just the better team.
Yeah, at Cincinnati, it's one of the more underrated, one of the oldest stadiums in the country. Unique stadiums, by the way. I'd like to go to a game at Cincinnati at some point, but I do have Iowa State getting the win there too, and I've got them at 5-1 through 6.
Yep, as do I. Then they go to Colorado, out to your neck of the woods. Beautiful stadium. Obviously, first time playing Colorado since they rejoined the Big 12, but not the first time going to Colorado. They've done it for many, many years. We played a heck of a snow game out there in 2000. Our kicker kicked a field goal. He was from Miami, Florida. We had to dig, the players had to dig out, so it actually went on the turf. And it's just funny watching him because Carl Gomez was his name, from Miami, Florida, was so cold, hated every minute of it there. But obviously he kicked it, and we won in one of the best seasons in Iowa State history. This is where I think Iowa State does stumble. I have Colorado winning this game. I just don't see Iowa State going undefeated in this big stretch here. You're going to see where I have a couple more wins here coming up, but I just don't see them winning 6-7 games in a row. I needed to pick a loss somewhere. On the road at Colorado, I've got Dion pulling the win there.
I'm going to trust Matt Campbell in the trenches of Iowa State. I've got Iowa State winning back-to-back road games, actually, and getting to 6-1.
Yeah. So you've got them. I would say if they are 6-1 with the close loss to Iowa, depending on how Iowa's doing, Iowa State in that case would be top 15, right around number 15, in prime position, obviously undefeated in the Big 12, in the driver's seat for getting to the Big 12 championship. I've got 2 losses in the Big 12 already, so I have them hanging on by a thread.
That's right. I've got them undefeated in Big 12 play the next week at home, back at Jack Trice versus BYU. I've got them getting a win there again, so going to 7-1.
Yep, I have them winning there. BYU just announced a true freshman quarterback. His name is Bear. His brother's name is Tiger. He's wearing number 47. He was at Stanford in the spring and back into BYU now. So already transferred before he even played a snap. I believe he's a true freshman. It's kind of weird. I was reading the article today. So I just think BYU was one of those. They were one of the first teams out of the playoffs last year. They take a step back. It's at Jack Trice Stadium again. Another one of those first time. I guarantee BYU's never been Ames.
Yeah, the Mormons are coming to town, and
Right.
Jack Trice is a tough stadium. Yeah, BYU's had some changes there at quarterback. They had a heck of a season last year, of course, but I think that I think Iowa State's going to get them here. I think just it might be a little bit of a reset year for BYU.
I agree there. All right, now the calendar flips to November. So now it's crunch time. It is November 1st, so it's early November. Arizona State, defending champ. A lot of people pick them to be right in the mix again. At Jack Trice Stadium. This should be as long as Iowa State's having the type of season you and I both have, 1 or 2 losses. Arizona State have 1 or 2 losses or maybe 0. This should be a big-time game. This should be on one of the big networks, ESPN, at a decent time. I would say 11 a.m. or 7 p.m.-ish. Big announcers are there. And this is the big win. This is Iowa State's one of their big wins. I have them beating Arizona State here to stay in the Big 12 race.
Okay, this is where I give them their first Big 12 loss. So I've got them losing to Arizona State again, moving their record to 7-2 and their first Big 12 loss in conference.
Yep. So we're the same overall, little different in the Big 12, but same overall, 7-2, which you're thinking about in the history of Iowa State football is awesome. but they're hanging on by a thread in the conference both ways for us. And this is what's expected now at Iowa State. This is, you're in every game. You have them a close loss to Iowa. I have them a close loss to Kansas State. Colorado, I have them a close loss. I'm assuming it's probably not a blowout, Arizona State. I don't think it's anything like the Big 12 championship game at Jack Trice Stadium. But in every game with a chance, Arizona State, one of the better teams.
No, that's right. We're pretty much we're close on our predictions. The following week at TCU, which a lot of people have as a sleeper team in the Big 12, I've got them losing that game as well. So I've got back-to-back losses now for Iowa State after the good winning streak that they went on.
Yep, I have them losing at TCU as well. I do think TCU is better on the road. This is their third loss in the conference, so 6-3. So I think this one knocks them out of the Big 12 championship race for me. In your case, they would probably still have a chance. Again, with all these big conferences, we will have tiebreaker scenarios. Then obviously it depends. If they're still an undefeated team or just a one-loss team, they're going to be hoping and praying. But very much, it wouldn't surprise me to have them 2-3 losses at this point in the season. And it's still a really good year.
Yeah, not at all. TCU is going to be tough. TCU's got a tough schedule themselves. I know some people are picking them to maybe win the Big 12. I just think their schedule's a little too tough this year. But we both have Iowa State 7-3 through 10 games, correct?
Yep.
Okay. The coming back home versus Kansas, I do have them getting the win there and getting to 8-3.
Yep, I do too. Kansas. This is a game that is a little scary. It's at home. But Kansas is a team. Kansas and Texas Tech kind of had Iowa State's number and Matt Campbell's number over the years. Kind of like Iowa State has had Kansas State's number, actually. I think Kleiman is 1-4 against Campbell. It's kind of weird, but it just is Lance Leipold, who many people believe that if Matt Campbell didn't take the Iowa State job, that Lance Leipold would have. He was high up on Pollard's list, but they do think Campbell was number one, and so he never had to go down the list. But if he would have had to go down the list, Leipold would have been very much interesting and maybe interested in the job.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So you have we got their last game of the year at Oklahoma State. And Okie State's a weird one. They've been so good under Gundy, and they've had a little bit of a down spell. It's kind of weird. I was looking at some schedules. I've been going through a lot of college team schedules. Oklahoma State plays at Oregon early in the year, which is just kind of a weird one. But I do have Iowa State finishing strong, getting the win in Stillwater, which is going to be a tough place to play regardless, getting to 9-3. And as we talked about last week, I did have Iowa State versus Arizona State, a rematch in the Big 12 championship. So even though they're 9-3, they only have 2 conference losses, and they have the tiebreaker over Kansas State, which I think will be that tiebreaker game could be massive. Week 1.
With your schedule 7-2 and who they have winning, obviously you never really know. This is all predictions, but definitely could see that happening. I've got them beating Oklahoma State. I do think it will be Gundy's last game. He might actually already be fired. Just maybe they'd let him finish the season, much like a McCarney, the end of the McCarney era. I just think they're not going to be very good. And it stinks because Mike Gundy, I like listening to his press conferences. He's had Oklahoma State at the very, very top. 2011, if Iowa State doesn't beat them, they're playing for a championship. It allowed LSU to get back in and win their championship. So 9-3. I have them with 3 losses in conference, so they are not playing for a championship in my prediction. But 9-3 is a great season. They'll go to a decent bowl game, whatever, and end the year. And a little disappointed with 9 wins, realistically, and that just shows how high Iowa State has climbed under Matt Campbell and the expectations.
That's 100% right. I mean, when I was younger, when you were younger, if Iowa State could just get to a bowl game, that was a great season. But now the expectations are sort of similar to Iowa. I say it every year on here, unless there was a bunch of returning starters. 8-4 is the floor. Like you need to at least go 8-4 as an Iowa fan. 7-5 or worse it's a crappy season. It's just not a lot of fun. If you at least get to 8-4, you probably have a couple good victories in there. Probably have a couple losses you wish you didn't. But that was back when the Outback Bowl was still going on, and that was always a good one to go to. But Iowa State's kind of approaching that territory, and I agree now it's like 7 or 8 wins minimum for Iowa State, or it's going to be a disappointment, especially with all these returning starters.
Yeah, 9-3 going up until last year. That was the most wins Iowa State had ever had. They had never had 10 wins, and obviously they jumped that last year and got all the way to 11 with the bowl game win. But yeah, just great, good, really, really good season. I'm not going to say a great season. Really, really good season. Ball bounces a couple of different ways, and they go 10-2, and they're probably playing for a Big 12 championship.
Yeah, nothing wrong with 9-3. Whether they make the Big 12 championship or not, they're going to keep putting guys in the NFL. That's where our worlds kind of overlap. If you keep having good winning records, playing in meaningful games, you're putting guys in the NFL. That just gives you the momentum, helps with recruiting, all that kind of stuff.
Yep. All right, now let's switch over to Iowa. We're going to have a good conversation here as well. And then with the last 3 ones, we probably won't discuss each game as much, but I think this first game is zero talk about. Albany is god awful. The Hawks should be pretty good this year. The Hawks in a blowout against Albany.
Same really here. I've got Iowa getting to 1-0, and then of course we already discussed the Iowa State game. So you have Iowa State winning, I have Iowa winning. No surprise there. I guess that kind of moves us to week 3, which
might actually be worse than Albany. I don't really know.
That's another quick one. We don't need to waste a lot of time. I've got them getting the win versus Massachusetts and getting to 3-0.
Yep. Then the Big Ten starts. Rutgers. Greg Schiano has them back to being respectable. It's not just an easy walk in the park win like it has been a little bit. But I do have the Hawks. The Hawks are just better. I have the Hawks with the win at Rutgers. I believe it's at Rutgers.
Yep, it's at Rutgers, and same here. I've got Iowa getting to 4-0.
Yep. And then first of the 3 playoff teams that the Hawks play this year, Indiana comes to town. Is Indiana going to be a continued contender, or was it a one-hit wonder? I think it's going to be a little bit in between. They're not going to be the Indiana of old, but I don't think they're going to challenge for the Big Ten again or a playoff. In Kinnick, I've got the Hawks beating Indiana.
Same here. I've got Iowa getting to 5-0, and I could see Kurt Zanetti, he's a real cocky guy. I could see him saying something stupid the week of the game, some kind of comment, and just giving Kirk Ferentz and Iowa a little bit of extra motivation. Kirk gives them a little welcome to the Big Ten, even though it's a second year. Welcome to Kinnick Stadium. But I do have Iowa beating Indiana to get to 5-0.
Yeah. I have them, obviously 4-1 with the loss to Iowa State, but undefeated in the Big Ten. And that's the big thing. And going forward, we're not going to really talk about it, but the playoff is all about your record in conference going forward, because I do believe it's coming sooner than later. 16, 20, 24, 28, 36, 64. It's all coming. And so you just got to have some winning records and stuff. Now, here's the interesting one. Wisconsin. Wisconsin's got a brutal, brutal, brutal schedule. Luke Fickell is on the hottest of hot seats. They play Alabama right away, which Luke Fickell should kill whoever scheduled those games. I'm sure they were scheduled before he took over as coach, but he should have done everything in his power to buy those games out. But Wisconsin, I don't think he survives the season. And the Hawks, after last year's, throttling of Wisconsin, do it again in Kinnick.
Well, this one's actually at Wisconsin.
Is this one at Wisconsin?
It's at Wisconsin. And I agree with you. Luke Fickell, I think this is a must win for him. and Iowa's won 3 straight, I believe, versus Wisconsin. If Wisconsin goes 6-6 this year, I think he might be up for Coach of the Year. If they go 4-8, he could get fired. I mean, that's how small the margins are. They have arguably the toughest schedule in the nation. This is one I think Iowa's a better team, but Luke Fickell, this is a must-win for him. So I have Iowa dropping their first game at Wisconsin.
Okay. So you have them losing. So now we're back to the same 5-1 for both. You've got a loss against Wisconsin. I've got deep down, do the Hawks want to beat the Cyclones or the Badgers more? Probably the Badgers. It's in conference.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Bragging rights. Wisconsin's down right now, so I think this year Iowa State would be a better victory. Usually Wisconsin's not as bad as they've been the past few years. So this year I would say Iowa State's the more important victory for bragging rights, of course. But, you talked about the conference record really matters. So I do have Iowa dropping their first game this season at Camp Randall.
Now, the second playoff team, and many people's pick to win the Big Ten, number one team in the country by some people. We're going to see what they're made of. Can James Franklin win the big one? He won a couple kind of big ones last year in the playoffs because he got a heck of a draw in the playoffs. Penn State comes to Kinnick, correct? It is in Kinnick. And that game surely is going to be a night game. The Hawks are going to try very, very hard to get that as a night game and try to beat them 6-4 again.
Yeah. So we'll
Claiborne with the return.
I'll take 6-4. It should be a night game. It better be a night game. If Joe Paul was on the sideline or up in the booth, I would pick Iowa, but I'm going to go with Penn State. I think James Franklin is 4-1 versus Kirk Ferentz.
Yep.
So I'm going to give Penn State the win here. Iowa loses back-to-back games and moves their record to 5-2.
Yep, I have them losing as well. Penn State's really, really good. I think it's not a blowout or anything, but I think Penn State does win handily. It's not like Barkley having to score the last play of the game. Last time it was a big game in Kinnick.
Yeah, for Iowa, they just need to be in it about halfway through the third quarter. If they are, then there's going to be a lot of pressure shifting, obviously, to Penn State. But if Iowa can be within a score midway through the third, they're going to have a chance, of course. We know Kinnick and Jack Trice, that's where some of the top teams go to die and to lose. So if they're in it in the third quarter, you just got to hope for a tipped ball, a fumble, something, a blocked punt to go their way. But, yeah, I think Penn State comes out on top on that one, puts Iowa to 5-2.
Yep, I've got them the same way. Minnesota, PJ Fleck, Chihuahua himself. I'm always going to pick the Hawks. As long as he's the coach there, the Hawks win this game.
Yeah, row your boat back to Minneapolis, PJ. I got Iowa winning, getting to 6-2.
Yeah, I will never, if we don't ever need to pick Minnesota's record because I'll just pick them to lose every game.
We're on the same. We're rowing the same way on that boat.
And now the third team. I think Oregon is very, very interesting because people are not talking about them because of what happened at the end of last year. They got blown out by Ohio State. They were the number one team in the country. They had beat Ohio State. They beat Penn State in the title game. They were flying high, and then, they had those couple weeks off, and Ohio State, beat them, and then Ohio State went on to win the national championship. Oregon was really, 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 really good last year. They were really good.
Yep.
And I don't think they're going to fall that far. I mean, they might not be the number one team in the country, but to say that they're not going to be a top 10 team, I think is ludicrous. They're going to be really, really good. They come in to Kinnick and get a win as well.
Yeah, Oregon's a team that I'm a little bit down on, and I'm kind of wondering now maybe if I shouldn't be because the way their season ended. They've got that sour taste in their mouth. They should be great on the trenches of both sides of the ball. This is one I'm going to give Iowa. Iowa gets a big one at Kinnick. I think this one and the Penn State game could both be night games. I think Iowa somehow needs a split between Penn State and Oregon, if they can, of course. And I'm going to give Oregon's first time at Kinnick, as far as I know, at least in recent memory. Kinnick's one of the toughest stadiums to play in the country. And I think this is where Oregon maybe has a little bit of a slip up. And Iowa gets a real big win for the season. And
that would be a big time win. That game is going to be on Fox or ESPN, no doubt in my mind. Probably at night. I don't see them wanting Oregon to play at 11 a.m. No, even though it's on the road, but they're not going to want Oregon to be at 11 a.m. They want Oregon fans to watch them.
Yeah, that's going to at least be a 2:30 kickoff Iowa time or later. So I've got Iowa getting that one, a massive win for the program, get to 7-2, and then they're going to turn right back around and go out west, which Kirk Ferentz and the Hawkeyes don't do well, and they're going to lose at USC.
I have them losing as well. I have them back-to-back losses here. This is just a tough spot. Kirk Ferentz doesn't like going west. The Iowa Hawkeyes before Kirk Ferentz didn't like going west. They went west last year and lost to a very mediocre UCLA team.
I was at that game.
Yeah, this is a very, very tough spot, and I have them losing as well.
Yeah, same here. I don't know what to make of USC. They're going to be decent. I don't know if they're going to be great, but Iowa just doesn't do good out west for whatever reason. So I have them after the big win versus Oregon at home, not being prepared out west, dropping that game. So I've got Iowa 7-3 through 10 with 2 to go.
So I have them with 4 losses, 2 to go. Michigan State. Was this their most disappointing loss last year?
Probably.
Or was the UCLA game?
It's a toss-up. But, yeah, those are the 2 most disappointing, I would say. And, yeah, Michigan State, they just weren't ready for that one. I've got them getting the win here, a little bit of payback back home at Kinnick. I don't know what to make of Michigan State or their coach, but I have Iowa rebounding after a tough loss to USC to get to 8-3.
Yep. So I've got them 7-4, Michigan State. And then to end the season, as they always do, Black Friday, Nebraska. Where's it at this year? I don't even.
At Nebraska.
At Nebraska. So in Memorial Stadium. Nebraska thinks they're going to be back. Obviously, by this time, we'll know if they really are or not. Nebraska just, for whatever reason, not that they don't beat the Hawks, but just historically in the last 10 years, the Hawks find a way, and I think the Hawks find a way here. Finish the season 8-4, 3 losses in conference, so 6-3 in the conference. Much like the Cyclones, a fine season, nothing special, is what it is. And just, we talked about 8-4. You don't want any less than 7 wins ever. Just right where they are, but nothing special on the year. 8-4 for me.
I've got them winning at Nebraska, and that puts them at 9-3, which is pretty good. 6-3 in the conference, which is why I didn't have them making the playoffs. I had Illinois, given their easy schedule. I think Illinois has got a little bit better chance. We're going to get into Nebraska and some other teams, just kind of think of what their record's going to be. But I do have the Hawks beating Nebraska again. There are some people saying that Gronkowski, he might be the best quarterback Iowa's had since Beathard. So that is it's hope, positive hope for Iowa. Their offense was a little bit better. If their offense can improve, 10 to 15%, will that be enough to get them to 9, 10 or more wins for the regular season?
I heard that, and then today I was listening to Miller and Condon on KXNO here, and they are flipping the other way, and they are hearing rumblings that Gronkowski, or however you say it for sure, is not doing great, and maybe he's not as good as they think he is, and Hank Brown needs to be ready to go.
Neither would surprise me.
I have no idea. It's probably somewhere in the middle.
Listen, if either quarterback can throw for over 150 yards and not turn the ball over, we're going to be all right. If they can throw for 200 yards with no turnovers, I mean, we could beat just about anybody in the country. So that's where the bar is at. But I've got Iowa and Iowa State both finishing 9-3 this year.
Yeah. So I have the Hawks at 8-4, Cyclones 9-3. So very, very similar. We'll come back in December and see how good we did or how bad we did. Now, there's 3 other teams here that we want to talk about. Let's go to Nebraska first. Obviously, the last game of the year, we both have them losing to Iowa. Just a couple other games of note. Penn State, they play Penn State. I have them losing to Penn State. I have them losing to USC, and I have them losing to Michigan. So I have them 8-4 on the year. They do not play Ohio State, and they do not play. That's probably, and they do not play Oregon. Just looking at their schedule, so kind of the top tier of the Big Ten. They don't play those two, but I have them 8-4. That's probably the best record in Nebraska in quite a while.
Yeah, I've got them at 8-4 too. We knew the third year they usually click as far as the coach goes. I think Dylan Raiola I can't take seriously. He's a child. You can't. It'll probably work in college to an extent. If he goes on to the NFL, those grown men are going to laugh him out of the locker room trying to pretend to be Mahomes at every given moment. That's just weird. I will give him a bump. I got him at 8-4 and finishing right about 7th or 8th place. I know we probably will do our power rankings each week like we always do. I think Nebraska finishes around 7th or 8th at the end of the year in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Nope. So we're similar there. All right, now let's go jump back to the Big 12. Colorado. I have Colorado going 7-5, so a step back, but still better than some people think. I do think Deion can coach. Now, this is all dependent on his health. I mean, I know he says he's cancer-free and he's coaching, but I'm sure it took a toll on his body. He's not. He hasn't been as healthy. He's dealt with amputated toes, and he's dealing with health struggles, and has been for a while. His sons aren't there. Travis Hunter isn't there, so we're going to see what he's made of, and his coaching staff is made of. He's got a lot of kind of famous coaches that could play. We're going to see if they can coach. I actually think 7-5 is a pretty decent season for them, considering what they lost. Just a couple highlights there. I have them beating, we talked about, I have them beating Iowa State. I have them beating BYU. And then, they start the year against Georgia Tech. I have them losing that game, losing Arizona State, losing Kansas State. So just they kind of win some of the ones they're supposed to win and lose the ones they're supposed to lose. I think that's kind of their season.
This is our biggest discrepancy so far. I've got them going 5-7, so our records are just. I think the roster is pretty decent compared to what it was when Deion took over, of course, when they won one game the year before. But it's going to be his first year without his son, without Travis, both of his sons, I should say, and Travis. They do have a good coaching staff. If they can go 6-6, I think that'd be pretty impressive. If they go 7-5, like you're predicting, I think that'd be a hell of a coaching effort by Deion and the staff. So I've got them going 5-7.
Okay, so not way off, but there is a lot of difference between 5-7 and 7-5 in the eyes of everybody. Obviously, 5-7, you're sitting at home. 7-5, you're going to a bowl game. And then here is probably the most intriguing one. Belichick comes into the college world at North Carolina. So, I wouldn't say it's a blue blood, but this isn't he's not starting at the bottom of the barrel either. But, what are they, the 4th or 5th best team in the ACC historically, probably? You got Florida State, Miami, Clemson, and then maybe, then it kind of goes in and out. Might be North Carolina, but they start with TCU, Big 12 team. I think that is that on Sunday? It's kind of a weird. It's that Labor Day weekend, I think. So it's that weird. They play. There's games Friday, there's games Saturday, there's games Sunday, and there's games Monday. I think they're Sunday, so it'll be right in Belichick's wheelhouse.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they are the Sunday game. I'd have to double check. There's 3 big games on Saturday. There's a Sunday game, and then of course Notre Dame, Miami on the Monday, I believe. But for me, I looked through their schedule earlier. I've got them going 7-5.
I do too. I have them as well. I have them losing to TCU. I have them losing to Clemson, losing to Syracuse, losing to Duke, and NC State. So in the eyes of North Carolina fans, they're not going to be happy losing to Duke and NC State. But I would say overall 7-5 first year for him. It's not bad. He's doing just fine at 7-5 for the first year, I think.
Yeah, given all the distractions that they've had to start, and his first year in college dealing with the transfer portal. Of course, he's brought in some of his old guys to help with the money. There's a little bit of overlap there that he understands, but dealing with younger kids, I think will be a little bit of a challenge. Not that he can't handle it, but I'm not ready to predict them to go 9-3 or 10-2 like some people are. I think 7-5 would be a pretty good first year for him. Anything above that, of course, would be really good for his first year.
Yeah, I mean, just get acclimated, start getting his players, getting his system, see if it even works. I mean, honestly, I don't know who he's all hired. If he hired a bunch of NFL guys or college guys to his staff, I couldn't tell you. I just don't know. Probably should have looked that up a little bit. But yeah, we're going to see, and that's okay.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot of good stuff about college this year. I'm probably more one of the few years now I'm more excited for college. I've placed a bunch of bets on championships, Heisman, stuff like that. So I'm really into college. Maybe it's just I'm itching for football and college starts first. But
I'd say
Iowa State, of course, Colorado, see how they do with new players, how Belichick does. Of course, I'm hoping for the demise of Nebraska and Minnesota, like you are too. And, of course, seeing how Arch Manning does, and I know we're going to preview those games next week. We'll probably talk about the big 4 or 5 and make some predictions too. But we got 3 more sleeps, and we got college game day. Pat McAfee. I was looking at the weather in Colorado Springs. It's supposed to be like 60 degrees that morning when game day starts. Be perfect. Have a bunch of breakfast food ready to go, and I'll be on the road 25 straight days. So when I get home, that Saturday for Iowa State, Kansas State, I'm going to basically not leave my house, the recliner, the couch. It's going to be like 7 to 10 hours straight of just watching game day in college football with some naps.
That does not stink. And obviously an hour earlier out there, so even better for doing the breakfast food and everything. So, football is here. Best time of the year, having some people over Saturday for the game. So we got TVs all set up. We got a whole bunch of stuff hanging. Got a bunch of Iowa State stuff down in the basement ready to go. So Zach can come in and look at all that and sit with all the Iowa State stuff.
Is Zach coming over?
I believe so. I'm not 100% sure, but I think so.
All right. Well, he's not going to be happy if Iowa State wins.
Yeah. Nope. He asked if he could wear purple, and I said, well, why would you want to do that? Because it just looks ugly. But
yeah, you have to. Regardless, he's going to be wound up one way or another, whether they win or lose.
All right. Let's go to the NFL real quick. Obviously, there's some headlines, just kind of things to talk about. The Bears with one of the more impressive preseason games ever. They look good. I was listening to somebody, I can't remember, and they didn't realize that Ben Johnson was such a red ass. Like, he is on their ass. He doesn't. It's his way or no way, and he doesn't give a crap, and that's the way it's going to be. And some of that needed to happen. I do think Matt Eberflus was very laid back. I think the Bears in general over the last 20 years have been laid back just in their approach. Not necessarily because that's what the owners want. That's just who they hired as coaches, and that's how they dealt with things. And whether Ben Johnson really is that way or just walked into that facility and saw that's what it needed doesn't matter to me. If he thinks that's what is needed to change the culture and win football games, then so be it. And that's what his job is to win football games. Doesn't matter how. These are grown men getting paid millions of dollars. It's my way or no way, and I like that.
I do too. Like you said, he's a red ass. He before he became the offensive coordinator, I mean, he started kind of at the bottom of Detroit. So he saw the worst of times and then he saw the best of times. He saw how that program was built by Dan Campbell and everybody involved. And I like it. There's stories of him kicking the offense or certain players off the field if they're not ready. And it's pre-snap stuff, which I love because pre-snap you're in control of. Yep. You get in the huddle, get the play in, break the huddle in time, line up correctly. no false starts, no illegal motions. That's all stuff you can control. Now, after the whistle, or after the snap, I should say, that's a little bit different. But before the snap, it's stuff you can control. So I like what I'm hearing out there. The preseason game, of course, couldn't have gone any better. Nope. It's the Bears won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
The Bills don't care because they're trying to get to the Super Bowl. But I thought Caleb and the backup Tyjan or Bagent, of course. I don't know if you saw the video that just came out earlier today.
Yeah, he signed for $10 million, which is huge.
Did you see him crying, talking about his dad? And that was pretty cool. But the culture has shifted there in Chicago. So they should at least be buttoned up more than they were last year. How many wins that leads to, we'll see. But I really liked what I saw. All the quarterbacks, the offense, it was sharp. Caleb came out. He was quick with his decision-making. That screen pass, it got blown up. He could have tried to fit the ball in there.
Yep.
Instead, he just dirted it. Smart move. I'm sure they've gone over that. So I liked what I saw. They should definitely be more buttoned up. And does that mean they're going to be a playoff team? I don't know. But I think Ben Johnson is the type of guy that you're going to know by the end of the season whether Caleb Williams is the franchise quarterback or not.
Yeah, he's just going to put it right out there. He's going to let Caleb do Caleb. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And he'll move on. He doesn't care.
Yeah, he's exactly what the Bears need. Speaking of quarterbacks and quarterback rooms, the Giants have looked pretty good preseason. Yeah. And they've got an interesting quarterback room. They've got Russell Wilson, super religious, but he's almost robotic. You've got Jameis Winston, who's also very religious, but he's wound for sound. He's just a crazy guy. Yeah. And you've got Jackson Dart, who's also religious from Utah. Right. He's just kind of in the middle learning. And then you've got the Italian guy, DeVito. They're four string. I don't know if he's going to make the team or not. But it's just it's a weird quarterback room, but an interesting one. It seems like all the guys are gelling. Russell looked good in the preseason. He threw a pick, but it looked like it was miscommunication with the receiver, a rookie receiver on that play. Jackson Dart looks lights out. Again, it's preseason, but give some hope for the Giants. I think the Giants are a sleeper team, not necessarily to make the playoffs. I'm not saying that, but they could have the best defensive front in football. And whoever's playing quarterback, as long as they don't turn it over, kind of the Belichick and the Iowa Hawkeye style, play good defense, special teams, don't turn the ball over and don't commit penalties, you're going to win more games than you lose typically doing that. So there's something about the Giants QB room. There's a lot of good vibes coming out of there. Now that could change, instantly week one if they start laying eggs, which the Giants have been known to do about the last.
I'm assuming Dable coaches the quarterbacks, doesn't he?
For the most part, yeah, he's pretty much in control of that. And Russell is going to start week one. They promised him that, which I think is fine. Yeah. If Russell plays good, you stick with him. And through 3 or 4 weeks, if he's struggling, you go to Jackson Dart.
Speaking of kind of older quarterbacks starting, 2 of them announced today. Daniel Jones over Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis, which Richardson's not happy about, but I think that was just a bad pick. They picked on athletic abilities / potential, not on actual being a quarterback and actually playing college football. Him and Trey Lance are a lot alike. They have all the intangibles. They just didn't play a lot of college football, and it's coming back to show that I think you have to play put Brock Purdy in there. Brock Purdy started like almost 50 games at Iowa State. Win, lose, draw those 50 games. That's 50 games of film. You know what you're getting. With Trey Lance and Richardson, they played 15 games in college. Mitch Trubisky was kind of that same way. Just a year, maybe even 2. It's just not enough film to know if they're the guy or not.
You're 100% right. And this is a big controversy, apparently. I thought when the Colts signed Daniel Jones for $14 million, I was like, yeah, he's going to start week 1. And you remember last year when Richardson got hurt, or he didn't get hurt, he ran around.
Yeah, he pulled himself out.
Took himself out of the game, and he did 2 things wrong. Once, he took himself out of the game, which is a quarterback you can't do. Now, if you're injured, that's a different story. But you can't take yourself off the field because you're tired. You're the leader of the team. Nobody does that. Like that's never happened, in the NFL. And then afterwards, he admits that that's the reason he pulled himself to the media.
Right.
He's like, yeah, I was tired. Like, you can't do that. So he was 0 for 2 there. And then later in the week, his offensive lineman came out and said, yeah, we addressed that with him. You just lost the locker room. I mean, and of course, all the Madden people out there, like this is absurd. You got to start Richardson. No, you don't. You and I have talked about this for a few years now.
Yep.
These veteran players, they don't care about a year from now or 4 years from now what draft pick they're going to have. These guys are trying to win week one. And that's another thing that we're going to probably talk about with the Browns, why they're starting Joe Flacco.
Yep.
You have to show the veterans on the team that you're trying to win. And every year we're going to talk about week one lines here as we kind of end the podcast tonight. Bad teams don't know they're bad in September. Upsets happen all the time early in the season. And you can't lose a locker room just because you want to see a guy's potential. There's the whole other team to think about. Now, week 6, week 8, week 10, you can make a switch. That's a different story. But you have to go in the season with your team believing, because you've got guys that are on their rookie contract or maybe on their second contract that are trying to get one more. They're trying to get one more 3-year deal for $15 million as a guard to set their family up for life. They don't care if Anthony Richardson's going to be the starter in 3 years. They just want to win now and put good film out now. So to me, it's the right move.
And, kind of speaking of that, I think Cleveland, it's the right move too. And you hit it right on the head there. If they lose and we're week 5 and they're 1-4 or 0-5, Flacco sits the bench and you put in one of the other rookie quarterbacks, and that's fine. It is what it is, and that's okay. But you can't go 1-4, 0-5 with Shedeur Sanders as your quarterback, and then you pull him and put in Gabriel. Well, now you just killed Sanders. I mean, that's just what happens. If you're already 1-4, 0-5, and then you put Sanders in or Gabriel, and then they go 1-4 and 0-5 in the next 5 games, it is what it is. You're a bad football team. That doesn't mean they're bad. But you start 1-4 with Sanders, and then you go to Flacco and he wins 6 of 8. Well, now Sanders sucks. And he may not really. He's just inexperienced and doesn't know. But you just can't kill young guys at the expense of an entire team.
Yeah, you can't listen to the media or the fans all the time. I mean, sometimes the fans and media are right, but you got to do what's best for the entire team. And you go with Flacco and listen, every year there's 1 or 2 surprise teams. I'm not saying it's going to be the Browns or the Colts, but every year there's a surprise team that we don't see coming, or the vast majority of fans don't see coming. So you have to give your team the best chance to win to start the season, and then you see how it progresses. Then you can throw Anthony Richardson or Shedeur Sanders in week 6 or week 8 or week 10 and go from there.
Yeah, no one would have thought the Vikings with Sam Darnold was going to go 14-3.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and then here's, you can talk about all the players, but the coach and GM need to win too, or they're not putting people out there not wanting to win, because that's their livelihood too. Now, obviously they're going to get paid whether you win, lose, or draw, but all the coaching staff and everything, they don't get the big check. Kevin Stefanski, if he gets fired in Cleveland this year, has 3 years left on his deal, he's going to get it. But the assistant wide receivers coach doesn't. He's going to get the rest of his current salary, and then he's going to be looking for a job. And Kevin Stefanski doesn't want that for his team. Now, in reality, it's going to happen sometime. That's just the life of a football coach, but you're trying to do the best by you, your team, and then your coaching staff and everybody.
Yeah, again, it's not Madden. Everybody online says, these coaches and players for like the Browns or the Colts, they're delusional. Well, yeah, they are. They have to be. That's the reason that they're in the spot that they are. They kind of have to be overly confident and delusional a little bit. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. So, no, you're 100% right. There's going to be a surprise team. These coaches, these players, they're trying to win. And again, early on in the season, we saw it last year, and that'll kind of move us into week 1 lines. If you remember, the Patriots went on the road and beat the Bengals week 1. I think that knocked like 60+% of people all over the United States out of survivor pools.
Yep.
And if we're just looking at week 1 lines, I wrote down 5 big games. The first being, of course, the first game of the season, the Eagles are favored by 7 versus the Cowboys at home.
Yep.
I do think the Eagles get the win there. The other big one is Broncos 7.5-point favorites versus the Titans versus a rookie quarterback.
Yep.
We know the Broncos have an amazing record in September at home, the altitude and the heat. So both of those I wouldn't pick against the home teams. The other 3 I think are interesting. Washington's a 6-point favorite at home versus the Giants. Washington's got a little bit of turmoil going on with Terry McLaurin, the contract situation, bringing in some new offensive linemen. Again, I already spoke about the the defense for the Giants could be one of the best front sevens in the league. If Russell Wilson goes in there and doesn't turn the ball over, that should be a one-score game in the fourth quarter. I think the Giants have a chance in that one. And then the other two that are really interesting to me, Cardinals are favored by 6 on the road at the Saints. I think the Saints are going to be terrible, but week 1 in Louisiana, that's one of the toughest stadiums to play in. The crowd's going to be excited because it's the first week of the season. Kyler Murray's an up-and-down quarterback, as we know. I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints pull the upset. And then the one I'm looking at the most is the Bengals are 5.5-point favorites on the road at Cleveland. And under Zach Taylor,
they're awful.
Through the first 2 weeks, he's 1-11.
Right. Yeah.
And now some of that was before Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow was hurt for some of those games, but Joe Burrow was also healthy for some of those games.
Yep.
And he has a 1-11 record through the first 2 weeks of his career. So if you're picking the Bengals on the road at the Browns in the survivor pool, best of luck to you, because I won't be. I'll be taking the Browns plus 5.5 as far as spreads go. But anyway, those are 5 games. I think for sure one of the underdogs is going to win out of those 5, and maybe 2 will. But that's the tough thing about those survivor pools. I love them. They're almost more fun than fantasy, in my opinion. Yeah. But you feel good. You think you're taking the Cardinals or the Bengals or Washington, and one of them is probably going to end up losing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Washington looks the part, but again, like you said, just a little bit of turmoil there. It is a rivalry game. It's the first game. Everybody's patting them on the back. Dan Quinn's been the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. He was the coach of the Falcons. We ent the Super Bowl ahead 28-3, and then holy hell went in a handbasket, and he was never the same in Atlanta, and then went back to Dallas, great coordinator, and then now back as a head coach. Really, really good. Will it be a sophomore slump for him?
Yeah, him and Jaden Daniels. So Week 1, week 2, week 3, the lines are tricky because we don't quite know about the teams yet. The Saints, I think, started out 2-0 or 3-0 last year. They went to Dallas and stomped them, and then of course their season went to hell. And I think the Saints are going to be bad again this year. But again, week 1, week 2, week 3, we talked about it with the quarterbacks. These teams all think they can win, and a lot of times they do early in the season. My favorite bet of week 1, I was looking at the lines. Seahawks, 2.5-point underdogs at home versus the 49ers.
Yeah.
I'll be betting on Seattle. The 49ers have a ton of injuries at receivers. They just traded for Sky Moore a few hours ago. They hardly have any healthy receivers, and they're implementing a bunch of new young defensive players. So while the 49ers do have the easiest schedule on paper, at Seattle, week 1 is going to be pretty tough. I'm going to be taking Seattle plus 2.5 at home. That's going to be my biggest bet of week 1.
All right, last thing I want to talk about here as we wrap up here. The New Orleans Saints have the number 1 pick in the draft. Arch Manning wins the Heisman Trophy. Texas win the national championship. Does he come out and play for his grandpa's team, or is that too much pressure and he comes back because he doesn't want to play for his grandpa's team?
If I was the Manning family, I'd advise them not to. By the way, they just traded a 4th and a 7th round pick to Denver a few hours ago for a number 3 receiver. So I don't know why the Saints are giving away draft picks. They should be trying to accumulate draft picks, in my opinion.
I would.
This is Sean Payton's not there, and the roster is pretty depleted. They've got a lot of players: Cam Jordan, Alvin Kamara, some others that are getting older. I think the Saints are going to be really bad. So if your scenario plays out, Arch Manning has an amazing season. They win the national title. Maybe he wins the Heisman or is close, whatever.
Yeah, he's the number 1 pick. I mean, he's the number 1 pick. If he comes out, he is the number 1 pick. That's what I'm saying. He had a great year. It's his grandpa's team. He's from there. Is that too much? So he comes back to Texas.
It might not be too much. It just might not be the situation they want. What's really interesting to pay attention to, though, is there's a team out there that would be absolutely the most ideal team for him to go to. And they have 2 first-round picks next year. And if their quarterback is injured, which seems likely, is the Rams. And if the Rams are picking in the top 10, whoever's picking first in your scenario, let's say it's the Saints, and Manning doesn't want to go there, that'll cause a big controversy. But since the Rams have 2 first-round picks, that gets the conversation started.
Yep.
Arch says, hey, I'm not going to play for you. I want to go to the Rams. Well, it's not ideal, but the Rams do have 2 first-round picks. It's going to take more than that, of course, but that at least gets the ball rolling in a trade scenario.
Well, and that would be like his uncle, Eli, drafted by a smaller market, San Diego, didn't want to play there, wanted somewhere else. Obviously, I don't think the Saints could actually draft Eli or Archie Manning and trade him. I don't think physically they could do that. I think the town would revolt. I think they would just have to trade the pick and then let the Rams pick Arch. Don't you think?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but it was the same thing that happened to the Chargers, though. The GM at least had to say, I at least took him, because you don't want to pass on him and just say we traded away. So it's sort of a pride thing where you want to say, well, I at least took him, and then he refused to play for us, so then I traded him because I had to. It's more of a pride and just protecting your butt type of deal. But everybody would know the situation if it plays out like that anyway. Nobody would really blame anybody for that if it plays out. But yeah, Arch came out today or yesterday, it was whatever, and said his grandpa, of course, came out and said he might go back, and he said, I have no idea. I do think that's going to be really interesting. Of course, if Texas beats Ohio State in week 1, he's already the favorite for the Heisman. He's going to jump way up, regardless if he plays great or not. So yeah, it's going to be a fun season. There's potentially going to be 6 quarterbacks in the first round next year, just like a couple years ago. It all comes full circle with college and NFL for both of us.
All righty. Well, it is here. Everybody's excited. Get your coffee going. Drink a beer. Drink your beverage of choice, whatever it is. 11 a.m. Saturday. Cyclones in Ireland. No bagpipes, but you got your Irish music. The Irish jig is going.
I have a 6:30 a.m. alarm set, and I don't know if I'm going to cook breakfast. I may run down to McDonald's and get a bunch of food and come back. And I plan to be in front of the TV by 6:55 a.m. And, of course, 7 a.m. out in Colorado. McAfee and Game Day will be coming on. Like I said, it'll be a full day of couch recliner for me.
All right. Well, I'll text you, or we'll FaceTime you or something from here. And especially, hope I'm wrong and the Cyclones win, and we're all celebrating.
Yeah, make sure to take some pictures of Zach if he's upset if Iowa State wins.
I will. All right. Thanks, Trev, and we'll talk next week.
All righty. Have a good one.